Right, so I'm here with ABB President Braun, and we're going to have a little chat about some of the challenges that the mining industry faces today. So hi Joe, nice to meet you, and thank you for agreeing to this interview. We've been hearing a lot lately about some of the really tough challenges the mining industry is facing, the real need that we have to extract critical minerals from the ground, and at the same time, people face a lot of pressure to reduce emissions and to become more sustainable in the way that they operate. I mean, how can miners meet that challenge head on to deliver us the materials that we need without having a negative impact on the environment?
Yeah, that's the old decisive question. First of all, the pressure is coming from the fact that the industry as such is emitting about 7% of the global greenhouse gases. So that puts them a bit in the spot. And then there's, of course, the interesting aspect about the mining value chain, if you think about it. So whatever gets extracted might then end up in a product, which is also supposed to be part of the sustainability transformation. And of course, you want these base materials then also to be mined in a sustainable way. In fact, the way the whole sustainability accounting works, you anyhow have to look at the whole value chain. So if you really want to have a CO2 neutral passenger car, for example, wouldn't make much sense if the lithium which went into the battery has been causing lots of emissions in the first place.
You might end up just breaking even or worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a way. And I think this holistic view makes a lot of sense because otherwise you might just be fooling yourself. So that is basically where a lot of this challenge is coming from. And then, of course, the rest is pretty much with the regulatory environment, CO2 taxes, other obligations. But let's also not forget that the industry has been pretty forthcoming in also imposing commitments on themselves. So basically all of the large mining companies have imposed such commitments on themselves to be CO2 neutral within the next couple of years. So that is pretty much where it's coming from. And at the same time, we couldn't afford that the production volumes go down because you would start deploying technology which is less efficient or less productive. And this is where ABB is coming into play, because on the one hand, electrification is often the answer to decarbonization, so cutting out other fuels. But then at the same time, you're probably putting in more constraints into the whole process, and that has to be dealt with by higher degrees of automation, digitalization.
Mm-hmm. And so in that way, can automation support electrification? Because you're actually helping to sort of make your operations more efficient.
Yeah, definitely. And that is, if I may say that, also a bit our sweet spot at ABB, because we are covering both aspects. And in fact, there's a large overlap as well. If you think about smart power, if you're adding, for example, sustainable power sources to your current power generation mix, you somehow need to manage this. You get different generation patterns. Let's say you put in solar, you have a very distinctive pattern between day and night, and your operations need to basically follow suit with this. And this is basically where electrification and power really have to go hand in hand, starting with the power management, but then also with the whole production planning and so on and so forth. Then there's, of course, a lot of other fascinating aspects about automation, because that might also answer some of the recruitment challenges in this industry as well, because it simply renders the profiles, the job profiles, much more attractive, both in terms of location, but then also in terms of the content of the work.
Yeah, because we've seen some of the solutions that people are offering here where you can work remotely,
Yes.
You don't need to be in a dangerous environment. So do you think that maybe the mining industry has a bit of a old-fashioned reputation, and we're kind of moving on from that now?
Again, I think they're probably further advanced than what many people might think. In fact, we have been putting such remote operation systems in place, and we have seen what difference it made for the customers. We have a customer in Chile where the mine as such is somewhere in the Chilean Andes, 4,500 meters altitude, very remote. So people who want to work there, they're separated from their families, they're suffering from high altitude sickness, all of these unpleasant side effects. While after this, 80% of the work could be transferred to an office downtown Santiago. So you get a much better educated, much younger, much more female workforce, because previously these jobs were, people wouldn't even think about taking such a job. And I think that's happening. And whenever I'm mentioning that very same story to my customers, the next thing is that we're basically arranging for a reference visit because everyone wants to have a look at this. So I think the adoption is not going to be far out.
Mm. Have you got any other good examples of customers that you work with and ways that you've been able to help them kind of adapt to this new landscape that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, there's lots of examples. And I can tell you that generally speaking, also when it comes to decarbonization, customers are in fact typically, even at least currently, ahead of the suppliers. I mean, customers are pushing way harder than what suppliers might be able to deliver. And this is often where we're jumping in and we're helping them. We just had a customer this morning who really had a very strong urge not to wait for battery-operated mining trucks to be available in the market, but to basically convert the existing fleet. Because most of the mining activity doesn't happen in greenfield mines, but it happens in brownfield mines with existing equipment.
Adapting to that legacy equipment and infrastructure, that's a separate challenge.
I can tell that the customers, they are coming up with their own solutions. They're not waiting for their suppliers, for the OEMs to do this. And ABB had been pretty helpful with them to basically put in the traction equipment, put in the batteries, which, they could basically source directly from us and not through the OEM, while then the end user had to basically arrange warranty questions with the OEMs as well. So you can see that it's pretty cutting edge on the one hand, pretty vanguard. On the other hand, it's also uncharted territory we're stepping in.
And I guess sometimes is the supply chain itself and sort of hold-ups with that, can that be something that presents a challenge for customers? And how do you help them manage it so that maybe people want to make a change today, but actually they have to do it incrementally?
Yes. I think the supply chain is going through a phase of increased collaboration. If you look at the traditional ways of doing mining, all of the suppliers were pretty much operating in charted territory, so they knew what they were doing and they depended much less on working with others. What we see today is that the challenges in front of us cannot be solved by someone single-handedly. Not even the biggest ones can do that. So ABB has been collaborating with OEMs, with end users, with operators, with other suppliers to the industry to really find the right solutions which no one could provide individually. But of course, end users are playing an important role as well by basically letting us know, okay, what are our red lines? What are the funds available? And then in terms of your question as well, I mean, a transition can happen, of course, how quickly do you go from, whatever you have today to net zero, because this will be gradual for sure. But that also happens on the technology spectrum. I mean, there are certain technologies which are considered just transient technologies, while we're basically waiting, for example, for batteries to have higher power densities, for example. So we might still be using trolley lines instead. But there's something you can start doing already today, and that's the encouraging thing. There's absolutely no excuse to wait for something else to show up in the market.
There are these transition technologies that will help you on that journey. Yes. So can we afford to be a bit hopeful about the prospects for the future? 'Cause sometimes there's a bit of doom and gloom in terms of how much of critical minerals we're actually, especially in Europe, that we're actually managing to take out of the ground. Do you think overall the message is hopeful for the mining sector and how that impacts on the rest of society?
I'm extremely optimistic, and the reason is that most of the activity I notice is not because of regulatory rules imposed on the industry. Most of the ambition is actually coming intrinsically, and that I think is a very good sign. Because the legislator is often then just running after the
slow to catch up. Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a game of finding then the loopholes in the legislation, and then that is then moving the energy totally to the wrong thing. Rather than having miners who went out with their bold commitments when they would be CO2 neutral, and particularly the end users, I'm really impressed how much they're pushing like I said, often ahead of what is even available in the market nowadays, ahead of basically just complying with the applicable laws and the legislation, even ahead even of the demands of their customers being part of this larger value chain I was talking about. So I see a lot of intrinsic motivation, and people are not shying away also from making the necessary investments as far as I could see, because people also know the more I can stretch this out, I mean, the sooner I will reach the ultimate goal, but then it's also more digestible rather than trying to do everything in the past 5 years.
Yeah, of course, you spread that out from now until you reach that target, but well, hopefully. But and have you enjoyed MINExpo? What have you found most interesting here in the conversations and that you've been having, and the stands that you've visited?
I mean, MINExpo is of course a highlight for people in the mining industry, but what makes it special for us at ABB, as you know, it doesn't happen every year. And if you compare the last MINExpo 3 years ago to the one today, I think that we are now really benefiting from, first of all, the overdevelopments, which we were just discussing towards decarbonization. So the standing ABB has developed over these just 3 years in the mining industries, the pull we have now created, customers, OEMs reaching out to us, seeking collaboration with us, is a complete difference to what it was 3 years ago, where we were certainly a respected supplier, but we were not basically some sort of a forward thinker, someone who would have basically pushed the boundaries of what's happening in the industry. And this is the first time where we're basically harvesting all of the work we had been putting in here. So it's fantastic to be here, and yeah, as you can see, it's brimming with energy and good humor.
Yeah, well, congratulations. And yeah, thanks very much for sharing your thoughts with us today.
My pleasure.
Great to meet you. So, yeah, thank you. I'm here with Max from ABB, and we're going to talk a little bit today about electrification and how the company is helping people in the mining sector move forward on their electrification journeys. So hi, Max. Thanks very much for joining us. To start off with, could you just introduce yourself and explain a little bit about your role at ABB?
My name is Max Luedtke. Now I'm based in Switzerland, originally for Sweden. I'm running the business line mining in ABB. We will focus on all the electrification, automation, and digitalization of the mine. So actually, what we're doing is actually supporting a lot of our customers now on the journey on the decarbonization and also on the energy transition.
Excellent. And what are some of the challenges that customers face when they're looking to embark on this electrification journey?
I think a lot of our customers, they're going into new terrain. You have to understand that today, when they're using diesel, and suddenly when you're going to start to lose electric, the electrification going to be a critical component and the bottleneck in the mining production. Because each of these big trucks that you can see here on the conference are using up to 5 megawatt of energy. So if you can imagine you have a big fleet, then suddenly there's not going to be enough power on your grid. So you have to use renewable energy, you have to plan it different way. And normally how I compare this is everybody of us who have moved from driving a normal petrol car to electric car, understand how you have to plan your driving in a different way, how they're charging things, infrastructure where I'm going. Imagine now you're running a mine and have a fleet of 200 trucks or things like that and planning this. This is just to show you how you have to rethink and replanning your mining.
Yeah, it's enough of a challenge for individual drivers getting used to that range and the fact that it's silent and all these things that make it different.
But also the production planning, because it's not going to, you can't charge all the trucks at the same time. You can't load them all the time. So the whole power management system must be connected and talking to your production planning system. So and also that what makes so interesting in mining is that you build your mine around the ore body. So it's not like a lot of other industries where you maybe build a paper mill and you can similar paper mill the next time. Here, every mine is different. And now you have to build up a big and quite heavy and expensive infrastructure around this, so therefore you have to plan that in a different way.
And so it's like you're having to invent a new system every single time. So you've obviously got your work cut out for you.
Yeah. So, and also interesting, like I said, we just did a study just to show how important this is for our customers. So we just did a study that we're going to launch, I think, in 1 month, a little bit more than 1 month. where we interviewed 400 key decision makers and mining experts, and then 76% out of them came back that said the low-hanging fruit, or say where they have to focus, what will drive the decarbonization of the mine is actually to electrify your fleet. And interesting also in the same study what we did, 42% of them said that in the next 2 years they are going to invest in new electric fleets for the mine. So therefore I think this collaboration and this partnership is so important, where we as ABB focus on electrification automation together with the OEMs, together with our customers. We have to work together to speed up this journey. Otherwise it will take too long.
Especially if they're planning to do that in the next 2 years.
Exactly.
They've got a big challenge ahead.
Yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit about the ABB eMine solution,
Yeah.
how that works?
Yeah, eMine, and I will go back a little bit in the history of when I started. So the eMine started, actually the thought about this started 2019, and we launched it 2021. But yeah, just to see, everything started that we had a workshop up in north of Sweden in Aitik together with Boliden, where we invited a lot of the OEMs. We invited a lot of mining customers. So we had all the big OEMs out there, and we gave everybody one topic. We wanted them to look at mine of the future, the full electric mine. Everybody had to present for half an hour what they saw will be the channels. And in that discussion, it was quite interesting how the OEM said, okay, we need commitment from the mining industry. And the mining industry said, okay, you OEMs take too long time. And then we all know what happened after 2019. The COVID came and everybody, but actually it was a benefit now afterwards because customers had time. So we had a lot of virtual workshop with them, where we were working and looking into what would be the next steps. How can we drive it? What does I say the bottlenecks from their side? And then we came through this whole concept of eMine. Because eMine is not one solution, one product. It's a concept, it's a framework how we support our customers on their journey from the decarbonization. With everything starts, sitting together, understanding where are you in your mind today? Where do you want to be in the future in the mind? What are the next steps? How can you be so that is when the concept, then we launched that, and also to show that it's not one company can do everything. It's also part collaboration with partners and OEMs, and also with customers.
So how important is that kind of partnership and collaboration side of things? Because we're hearing at MINExpo some quite interesting kind of link-ups that you wouldn't necessarily have expected. And it's quite a different way of working to the past, where people were quite proprietorial and they didn't want to share data, and they didn't want to share the sort of name with someone else on a piece of equipment. I mean, would you say this is what's going to drive electrification forward?
Absolutely. And the nice thing we saw is it's not only collaboration from suppliers and things, it's also collaboration between the mining companies. Mm-hmm. And we can see their work, because that's the way that's going to speed this up. And everybody have their core competence. Like ABB, we have it in electrification, automation, digitalization. Other OEMs have their focus on building big trucks and moving more. And we have to work together, otherwise it will take too long. It's not going to be one company can do this. And therefore it's also interesting to see the mining companies coming together and say, okay, this is the standard, because they want the open standard. That is also what we as ABB stand for, open standard, so that you can get the scale of economy, and that we also can speed it up, because nobody will be locked in.
And that way you can learn from each other rather than kind of one person keeping all their secrets to themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I think that's so what you mentioned. I like that with the industry, this openness now. We start to talk more open, and we know to turn mining to this new generation of mining. They say the full electric, the new that needs openness. We have to work together. So you definitely, what you mentioned, we can see a big shift in the mining industry, which is very positive.
So are you quite hopeful that when we sit down and have this chat at the next MINExpo, that things will have moved on quite substantially?
Yes, if I go back 3 years ago and today, it's already moved a lot this 3 years, and I think that it's speeding up much, much faster now. So definitely in 4 years, and like you mentioned, there's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of things that have maybe been on the drawing board that you're going to see now coming out in production or in testing plants. We have to understand that mining industry is a quite rough and environment. So you can't, even if you have developed certain things in a lab, you also have to take it to testing mines and test it before you can really go into full production. So in the next 4 years, I think we're going to see a lot of things happening there.
Great. Well, we'll have to check in with you in 4 years' time, if not before. And I look forward to seeing the results of the survey when you're ready to publish that.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Max.
Thank you.
Cheers.